council meeting for Fall Crop, June 15, 2013. Everyone please stand. Since the mayor's not here, we'll do a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We open this meeting with a public hearing on the abandoned car ordinance. Before we start, I'll read the ordinance. There was some changes made after discussion at last week's committee meeting. An ordinance of the Borough of Fallcroft, County of Delaware, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, pertaining to the borough's authority to remove abandoned vehicles. Whereas the purpose of this ordinance is to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of the borough by removal of abandoned, illegally parked, stored, wrecked, junked, or stripped motor vehicles from private property. Whereas nothing contained in this ordinance should be interpreted to reduce the powers of the borough, the authority of its agents, and the rights of the citizens as contained in Section 10, Part 1 of the Fallcroft Borough Code. Now therefore it is ordained that the following Part 1B be added to the Section 10 of the Fallcroft Borough Code. Definition: as used in this part, the following words and terms shall be defined as follows. Abandoned motor vehicle is a vehicle which is found unattended without the current year's registration or identification markers as required by law and has been continuously parked or stored on private property for a period of 5 days and is so disabled as to be incapable of being operated under its own power or is without one or more of its tires, one or more of its tires. In no way shall this definition apply to classic cars being restored by their owners. Junk, stripped, or wrecked motor vehicles, any motor vehicle which is no longer in actual use as a motor vehicle or which is unfit to be operated or has been discarded for use. Abandonment prohibited. It shall be unlawful to park, store, or leave any motor vehicle of any kind in a wrecked, junk, stripped, or abandoned condition in a place where its presence constitutes a hazard on private property or for the owner or occupant of any property to allow, permit, or suffer the same to be left upon any privately owned property unless the same is authorized in connection with the business property operated pursuant to the zoning laws and other laws of the borough. A notice to remove if a police officer, the fire marshal, the parking code enforcement officer, or the health inspector find that a violation of section 110-10 exists, said official shall notify the owner of the property on which the motor vehicle is stored or parked, or the owner of the vehicle or both of the violation, and order either or both of said owners to remove this motor vehicle within 5 days. Emergency removal of vehicles. Nothing in this part shall prevent authorized police officials, the health inspector, the park code enforcement officer, or the fire marshal from ordering the immediate removal from private property without notice any attended or unattended motor vehicle, the presence of which constitutes a hazard or a threat to life, health, safety, or welfare of the citizens of the borough, and which is imminently dangerous and, in the opinion of the authorized borough officials, constitutes a nuisance which gives rise to the existence of emergency conditions. Notice to the owner of removal. Within 24 hours of the time of removal of any abandoned motor vehicle, notice of the fact that such vehicle has been impounded shall be sent by the borough to the owner of record of such vehicle and the real property owner from whose land this vehicle was removed. Such notice shall designate the place from which said vehicle was removed, the reason for its removal, and the garage or lot in which it's been impounded. Record of impounded vehicles. The borough shall keep a record of all motor vehicles impounded and shall be able at all times to furnish the owners or agents of the owners thereof with information as to the place of storage of such vehicles. The liability is the payment of towing, storage charges shall not operate to relieve the owner of any motor vehicle or owner of any real property on which said vehicle is parked, stored, or abandoned from liability for any fine or penalty for the violation of any law or ordinance on account of which said motor vehicle was removed and impounded. And part 110-16, no motor vehicle shall be removed if at the time of the intended removal thereof the owner or the landlord or whose property said vehicle is standing is present and expresses a willingness and intention to take action to remove the motor vehicle immediately. Mr. Sport?
Yeah, I just, as far as that ordinance goes, I was listening, did you take out the insurance and registration requirements for parking on public property or private property? Or is that still in there?
The language reads, a vehicle which is found unattended without the current year's registration or identification markers as required by law and has been continuously parked or stored on private property for a period of 5 days and is so disabled as to be incapable of being operated under its own power is without one or more of its tires. That language was there when we talked to committee. And then the language that was, finish a second. And then the language that was added was to address the classic cars.
Okay.
So the language that's added was, in no way shall this definition apply to classic cars being restored by their owners.
Okay. I'm not interested in
Hey,
passing.
before you go on, just so you understand something, in this, the way this is written, it's a mechanism. If it doesn't have proper insurance, and it's disabled, and it's missing a tire,
I'm gonna address that.
it's not one or the other.
But it doesn't say insurance, it says registration.
Okay, well, I'm
Correct, registration
okay.
identification.
Now let me ask a question here. As Dave's lawn care, I find a 2006 F-150 with a blown motor, okay? I pick it up for $3,000. Truck's a beautiful truck. I put it behind my house. It might take me 2 years to save up the money for that $7,000 motor to put in that truck. Truck's not gonna carry insurance. Truck's not gonna carry registration while it's parked on my property. Is that applicable to what you're saying?
Well,
Basically, it is applicable because it's not able to be run under its own power. It has 4 tires, but I can't start it. So now I can't have that truck on my property.
well, here it says, is so disabled as to be incapable of being operated under its own power.
I said blown motor.
So, that doesn't mean that it's incapable of being operated if you replace the motor,
Okay?
all right? So, if there's no complaints from any of your neighbors about it,
Okay?
and this is what we discussed last time, when the committee met, and someone comes around to give you a citation, you raise that issue with them. And since it's a community where people know one another, and there should be good relations between the governing body and its citizens, so long as nobody else is complaining, then the officer has discretion. Discretion is always used in enforcing ordinances or laws.
Okay. No one has explained to me yet the purpose of registration and insurance when we already have an ordinance that was passed in 1968 that addresses pieces of crap, broken windows, busted taillights, missing tires, leaking fluids, cats breeding in it, okay? We already had that ordinance from 1968. It doesn't say anything about insurance or registration. I still take issue with this. I object 1,000% to you as a borough of Fort Walton telling me that I have to have insurance on a vehicle parked in my private property when I don't have to have insurance to drive it up and down the alleys because the alleys are private property.
It doesn't say anything about insurance.
Okay, registration. Okay, forget it. It's registration then. I don't need registration to drive up and down the alleys. Why do I need registration to park a vehicle behind my house?
I appreciate your opinion, Mr. Spore. We're not going to entertain every rare scenario that you were trying to entertain last week. This
Okay.
is not the purpose of this ordinance. Joe explained last week the purpose of this ordinance.
Okay, I wasn't even talking to you, so you can just pipe down.
Excuse me,
Excuse me.
you address all of council when you're in public
Okay, well.
participation.
I don't want her opinion, so I'll tell her that.
comment, all right, you're entitled to it.
Thank you.
From my understanding, Emily, you're the only one that's allowed to talk.
Yeah, I was told to address you, Sue, wasn't I? So Big Mouth over there needs to step in line.
And I'm asking you to step down.
Yeah,
That's what I'm asking you to do, Mr. Score.
yeah,
You're looking for a confrontation and you're not gonna find one here.
yeah.
So if you're looking for one, you might as well leave.
No, I'm not leaving.
Okay, fine, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Since no one else has signed up for public hearing on the ordinance, I'd like to
Carmen.
close,
That's for the hearing, Carmen.
I'd like to close the public hearing on the abandoned cars. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Do I have a second? Public hearing on abandoned car ordinance is closed. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Drowsky,
Here.
Ms. Peterson.
Here.
Mr. Benny.
Here.
Ms. Foley,
Here.
Mr. McGuigan.
Here.
Ms. Rafter. Mr. Transfeld.
Okay, public participation. Carmen Haig.
Yeah, just two things. One, I just want to thank the police officers that approached the children that were out in the street after 9:10:30 last night. It seemed that there was a lot of kids on the street. I guess school's letting out and they don't realize that there is a curfew, right? So I did see the police officers, and I believe they were new too, telling them to move on or whatever they had to do. So I appreciate that. I really do. I'm sorry, Ken, I didn't know it was you. I did see the officers come though. Thank you. And the second thing was the inspector meeting that we had, or you all had, in the council private, before the council meeting this
Code
week.
inspector,
Yeah, you had a code
Yeah.
inspector.
code enforcers, yeah.
Okay, so why wasn't that at the meeting so that everybody could hear the presentation?
Each month, we're taking a different one because there's so many of them that have
Okay.
sent their information in.
Right,
And then once the committee goes through it all and sees what they have, we're going to narrow it down so that they can then present to the entire council.
okay.
Because there's just so much information to absorb and they all have different terminology and different ways of the way they figure out their fees and percentages.
And then it will be brought to a council meeting?
Yes, and then we narrow it down and then it'll be presented to the council members to pick which one they want to do.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Spore?
Yep. First and foremost, I want to thank Cliff Wilson for making us the laughing stock of Delaware County with his quotes to Philly.com. When you say, how was I supposed to know, Cliff? You got a police department here that can do background checks, and they said that in the past. You didn't know he was a career criminal, then you're too stupid to be sitting in that seat, in my opinion. Second off, I want to know, Sue, why you, as a borough council member and borough council president, have a pool in your backyard that's not surrounded by a 6-foot fence as dictated by borough ordinances. Therefore, you're,
Because I had a fence around the pool itself.
okay,
The building, we had a permit for our pool,
Yeah.
and it was inspected by the borough 12 years ago when I had the pool put in place.
yeah, that was when Trisella was here and your husband was so far up his ass he could taste his fart.
Excuse me, no it wasn't. We had just moved here, Mr. Spore.
Yeah?
You know what, I'm not gonna be in confrontation with you. I'm not even gonna deal
Well,
with this.
then
You
you
know
can
what,
sit there
you're
and,
done.
I'm not done.
You're done.
I'm not done.
You're
Like,
done.
that's how you're gonna
Hey,
handle
You're
things?
done,
You're done.
please.
You're done. Do not test me. You're
I'm
done.
not trying to test you, Chief.
Don't.
I'm not trying to.
Now keep your mouth shut the rest of the meeting or get out.
All right, I'll get out, Chief.
Thank you. Can I please have an approval for the minutes for the month of May for both committee and council meetings?
Motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Can I have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Drowsky,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson.
Yes.
Mr. Benny.
Yes.
Ms. Foley,
Yes.
Mr. McGuigan.
Yes.
Motion carries. Can I please have a motion to approve the bill list?
Motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Drowsky,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson.
Yes.
Mr. Benny.
Yes.
Ms. Foley,
Yes.
Mr. McGuigan.
Yes.
Motion carries. For council president report, I had asked, we've been asking Mr. Papaleo for his code violation numbers and his street sweeper numbers. For the month of May, he wrote 51 code tickets and 71 street sweeper tickets. I do not have the citations, but Joe is working on that. They are more detailed information that needs to be filled out. Last week at the committee meeting, we talked about the library board and the appointment of a librarian. We're going to need to put a hold on that, as we found out right after that meeting that the county never advertised the position available. So until that happens, we can't hire anyone because it has to go through the channels of the Delaware County Library system and their website. So as soon as that happens, then we can move forward. Probably July, August is what the board is thinking. We have a meeting tomorrow night, so I'll have more to report on in July. The Historic Commission was founded over a year ago, and they're going to start moving forward on the history of our borough. Mrs. Burgess would like any information or pictures that people have. She's looking to have them scanned, and we would like to get a hardbound book with everything in there, and taking the book that she originally put together and creating something more memorable for the residents of our borough. So we're going to meet in the next few weeks to discuss and look at pricing and stuff on what it's going to cost for something like that, and then go from there. She has received several pictures from a few of the older residents, but if anyone has anything that they would like to see in the book, because we're all a part of its history, to contact Linda at the borough office and let her know what you have. If you put your pictures in an envelope with your name and address on them, you will get them back. We'll scan them so that we can use them for the book. I did not know this, but Janet mentioned to me tonight that in 2022, which really isn't that far from now, because time just seems to fly by, we'll be celebrating our 100-year anniversary. So this is something that would really be nice to have to give to the residents and do for that. And if anybody's interested in joining the Historic Commission, feel free to contact Linda, and she can get in touch with Janet, and we can get in touch with you. We're always looking for help. The county is looking to do a history month, Delaware County History Month, in September through the whole month. So the Historic Commission is trying to get something put together for the kids at the schools and at the library to celebrate that whole month with the county. Did you want to add anything, John?
Like I say, it's hard. A lot of the stuff that we were trying to get from were before the 1900s. And we had a thing on the website. We also had it in Town Talk, and we really didn't get any response back from that. So I don't know, exactly where to proceed with that. I found new information out on my own with different things, but I'm sure there's things from the past that should absolutely be incorporated into this book to make it complete from beginning to end.
Excuse me, may I say just a little suggestion here?
Yeah.
I know that a lot of people that live here, their siblings also live here. Have you thought about contacting them to see if they could look in their albums, to see if there's like some sort of photos from the past that you
Yeah,
could
that's why
possibly
we
do?
tried to put the ad, in Town Talk and also on the website, so that if anybody saw that, they could contact us.
All right, well, that's
But we
something that
haven't-
we could all
Yeah.
actually talk about
Sure.
amongst the
Yes,
community.
I'm sure the Boys Club has stuff, the
That's-
Girls
that's
Club,
what
the
I'm
Fire
saying.
Yes.
Company.
I know that there's
So-
several families that have generations from generations
Right.
that live in this borough, and I'm sure you have family albums that date back to
And I'm more
then.
than glad to meet with
Where-
anybody that has this information, whenever it's,
I was just gonna say, did you do a flyer?
Cindy, why don't you join the Historic?
I was actually just thinking about doing that. I would think that would be very
I have a
nice.
question.
people
I would be
that are
good
watching along the parade route, maybe
Yeah.
hand them out as we're walking.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So, because I imagine that the people that actually come out to this 4th of July event are gonna be, lifelong Fallcroft residents and other ones that care to come out to our community and
Yeah,
stuff.
I have been compiling some
Madam
names
President?
that hopefully, when I get to these, and we can sit down and have a big meeting with everybody, and get it together, we should be able to get more. Because a lot of the older pictures need to be scanned because they're in such bad shape. The newer pictures are digital, so of course they're much clearer. But I'm sure there's things that people have that I have no idea that they have. We have a sign in the library too, to that
Plus, the
effect.
chief probably has a bunch of pictures from some of the older officers and everything
I was
else.
gonna say, other municipalities may also have things, like Alden or Sharon Hill, they may have whatever they have compiled. So I've seen some old pictures of, there was an airport down there on the drive at one point, they delivered mail out of here. They had biplane, back in the day, so there's a lot, I've seen them, I just don't know where I've seen them, but I've seen
Yeah.
them.
Nice job.
Yeah, I would like to have my name on that.
Thank you.
Janet, Cindy Fry would like to join the Historic Commission.
Fine.
I would like to.
So we'll get that set up for July.
Thank you.
I just, if somebody can give me the contact information now, I can get in touch with Cindy, that's fine. But 3 of my neighbors are original owners, and I'm sure they're in their 80s, so they didn't see they probably didn't read the article or whatever, but if I can get some stuff from them, then I can pass it along, so I'll give it to you.
Great. All right, thanks, Carol.
Moving on to staff reports. John, do you have anything to report on?
Just, at the last meeting with Verna, Linda Earl raised a request regarding putting a fence around her
Right.
front yard. I spoke with her and suggested a number of ways for her to deal with the issue. To deal with the fact that her son would, on his own permission, leave the house and run out into the front yard. A fence around the front yard is not in compliance with the current zoning act. It's not something that would qualify for a variance or special exception. To enable her to have a fence for a front yard, there would need to be a change in the zoning ordinance, which is something that council may want to give some consideration to.
Absolutely.
And
I can't even fix my fence.
So the solicitor knows we actually have taken this issue up properly
I'd like
100
to.
times, including this council here, and we're all like-minded, I think, unless someone's changing their mind, what we want to do with that.
Excuse me, I have a question.
Jeff?
I just have a question about the fences. I've moved here 2 years ago. I have 2 dogs. If there was a break in my fence, I can't fix it, or I'll have to go to the board meetings in order to repair it.
You can fix it, you just, as long as the posts are intact,
It
you
has
can
to be
fix any
exactly
of the
what you
chain link.
have.
Okay.
You can't change it.
We can replace it.
You can replace the chain link, as long as you don't replace the post, you can replace
Oh.
the chain link in the front as well.
Okay, I was told I
Okay.
couldn't replace it or touch it at all.
That's what I was
So
told
you
also.
can replace your chain link, but you can't take
touch
that
the posts
fence
that are in
completely
the
off
ground.
I'm not gonna touch that
and put
either.
something else in there.
Now, would they need a permit for that? I'm not sure, but I know they can replace it, they may just need to come up and file something with the borough.
Permit with, Brad.
But you can certainly replace the chain, it's no problem.
Okay.
So
Jeff?
Just your reports are attached. That's all.
I'm sorry?
Just that everybody's reports are attached.
Oh, okay, all our reports are attached.
Also, with the solicitor, I had a question.
Oh.
Do we have to take a, executive session? I talked to, the solicitor earlier in the month, is there any action we have to take in that other than executive session as far as it was possible, settlement or something along those lines?
that's going to be on the agenda next.
Okay.
Tom, you're up.
Thank you, everybody. Just a reminder, a few months back, or a few meetings back, council authorized me to go out to put together bids to repave Delmar Drive. We did that, we advertised the bids, and we opened the bids today. So council should have the results that those feelings that we had 4 contractors provide bids to us, and the lowest bidder was PO Construction. There was a base bid and 2 different alternates. This was to pave, again, all of Delmar Drive, new handicap ramps, new striping, done in alternates just to make sure that the borough has money to fund different options for this, so. Recommendation letter in your packets there. Any questions?
I have a question for you just about general contracts that we award. Is it your policy as the engineer to put forth always this bid? The reason I ask that question is obviously with the horrific thing that happened in Philadelphia, I think it's important that we also use, responsible contractor language to make sure that the people that we bring in here to do the work are certified, and not always just simply the cheapest. Because in some cases, cheapest doesn't mean the best as far as the quality work, as far as their OSHA regulations, having trained people on the job. I mean, what do you take into account when you're looking at these bids?
Well, absolutely, that's right. Every contractor is required to keep bonds and security for their insurance for their workers and their product that they provide. As a matter of fact, the contractors that bid on this job, we've worked with in the past, they've had experience with reputation as being reputable companies. They are required to provide certain contract documents with your bid that we verify to make sure that they had a reputation, they had the security, they had the manpower and the funding behind them to carry out these projects. So, again, they're all contractors. Before they're on this project, my company has experience with other projects. They've been around for quite some time. So, I need a copy of contract documents and see what we have in there.
Well, I know that, and on the county level, like I said, I think about 2 years ago, they passed responsible contractor language. Maybe that's something we should look at as council to do locally as well, so that we're protected. It's just good language that says we're gonna make sure that we use the right people for the job that are trained and qualified for all the jobs. Thank you.
So, on that note, I would like to have a motion to obtain Keo Construction Incorporated, to do the repaving and all of Delmar Drive. The bid came in, that was $498,650. 105 of it is coming from Pico for all the work they did down in the Windsor Circle section on Delmar Drive. So, do I have a motion?
Motion.
A second?
Second.
Roll call, please. Yes.
Ms. Gibson?
Yes.
Mr. Pettit?
Yes.
Ms. Foley?
Yes.
Mr. Wiggin?
Yes.
Motion carries, so, Tom has let me know also, I told him not to, have them start work before 4th of July, because we do plan on having the parade.
Excuse me 1 minute, just when you say Delmar Drive, are you talking also that
On Primus Avenue.
Okay, that's
Yes, so-
okay,
Entire,
Yes.
yes,
we're
very-
able to do the entire Delmar Drive,
Okay,
all the
I
way
was-
down,
'cause-
all the way to the bridge.
That-
Isn't that correct,
Okay,
Tom?
yes, sorry.
Yes,
I just wanted to make
so-
sure that was gonna be covered.
Yes, it is, that was the first part, that was actually our base bid.
All right.
And then Tom did the bid in 3 different parts, because if we weren't able to afford the whole thing, so.
I just wanted to make sure that,
Yeah.
because that's
That was
quite
the very
hazardous,
first.
very hazardous.
Motion carried on
Excuse me, I have a question. As long as we're talking about the paving the Delmar Drive, what about the driveways? I understand that's private property. What about the potholes that I can sit in that mess up my car when I go down? I live on Bennington, going down they get fined if they're property owners, they just get a fine and then it's left alone until next year. And if they're renters, they have to fix it. Why is that? I don't understand.
Everyone has to fix them.
Well, Bennington Road, the back of, on the left-hand side, it's manholes in the beginning of it.
I think,
And nobody's fixed them. And I've
You're
been
on the
there for
other
2
side
years.
of me.
Yeah, and I've been
Well,
there for
mine
2
is
years.
just as bad.
but on my side of Bennington, and I lived here for 6 years, every year I have to fix my potholes. There's one pothole that sits on both mine and my neighbor's property. It's huge. And I fill it I try to fill hers as well. I do my potholes every year. It's just a matter of the alleys are old. They need to be redone. And I thought that was already in motion, that all the driveways were getting repaved. So I was confused. I don't know, is that true?
We've never discussed, we've never discussed paving the driveways.
Well, how would that be brought up as far as being a motion to get all the driveways done and fixed with kids running
Because
around?
it's private property, we're not able to do that.
So if we would call into the police, I don't wanna bother the police, but down where, like I said before, the potholes, the kids can't even be down there. You don't want the kids in the front, in the street. I'd rather have my daughter riding her bike in the back alleyway, but unfortunately she can't because it's big potholes. Mine's fine and a couple houses down, but it's towards where that loop comes in, that nobody fixes them, and I don't understand why there's just one fine and it's gone, and it's okay.
My neighbor actually her car, she had bought a brand new Mustang, and coming around the corner on the opposite side of Bennington to make that right, she had to get a brand new tire and mess up part of her car on a pothole. And it's in dispute of whose pothole it is because of where it sits, and that's why it's not getting fixed. So it's frustrating. And it's not just Bennington. I know every alley.
It's all the alleyways.
Yeah, they're horrible. They're horrible.
We talked about this last week in committee. I know there was an idea thrown out there about if, Tom, you were able to prove it was deficient or something like that we could get funding for something like that, but I don't even know if that's really legally possible. I know since it's private property,
I'm not aware of any funding that's available for private property owners.
Right.
Roadways or alleyways like this, generally,
But if the driveway's considered deficient for the safety of the resident, deficient for the safety of the resident, isn't there some type of funding out there?
again, not that I'm aware of, it's no
Yeah.
different than if your, front
Right,
porch
that's
was
what I
falling
thought.
apart, it's
When I was
essentially,
brought up last week, I thought that, but I just wanted to throw it out there since you were here this week, that's all. But, okay.
I think on that issue, what was, the way the ordinance read was that in the case of an extreme situation with the driveway, the engineer was the one that had to declare the driveway to be in that condition. In either condition, whether it's a pothole or an extreme condition, once it's been declared that this exists, the township has, or the borough has to notify the owner by certified letter. Then they have 30 days to comply. After 30 days, the township has the right to do the repair, and then to bill the owner. And if the repair takes more than an hour, they're able to bill an additional $20 per hour for the repair. And then they can put a lien against the property to collect the money.
And what we went over during the committee meeting was the statute says has right to, it doesn't mean that we're required to, and it's a question of funding.
I understand. My point was, why can't we explore ideas like working with a contractor to possibly get reduced rates on the repairs? You know, if somebody was promised the bulk of the work, there's a lot of different ideas that could be worked to make this happen. The other idea that was brought up was to maybe concentrate on the paying landlords first, because they're inspected yearly and they have to pass this inspection in order to rent their property, which helps to give the township some leverage. If that was done, then perhaps through collection of fines and just the ones that will go ahead and do it, we can get a starting point to maybe build a little money to work with in the cases. In other words, the burden shouldn't fall directly on the 25 and 30-year residents that have been paying for their properties. It should be coming on, in the beginning at least, the paying the landlords taking money out of the township and people like that. And then maybe we can build a fund. And like I said, work with a contractor, maybe a couple of different ideas together. Even if we can only do 5 or 6 of the worst spots per year, at least it's a starting point. But there is a mechanism legally in place for us to force residents to do this if they won't do it on their own. I just paid $2,000 to fix my driveway. So I don't have it to throw around either, but it has to be done. I've complied with this since day one, you know what I mean? But we have somebody 3 doors down that's never so much as put a blacktop in a pothole, and I could lose my car in his potholes. That's not right, you know what I mean? There's no reason why one person should be able to get away with it and somebody else shouldn't, you know?
The problem is, if we build a fund up and repair that person's driveway, like you just said, then nobody would repair their driveways anymore.
I'm not
I think
saying-
enforcement is the way to go, and just, if these
What-
driveways are in bad shape, they just need to be fined, we'll send over Joe can fine them, and we'll take it from there. And I think that's the way to do it.
When I
Fines
talk
are
about a
only once a
fund,
year,
I'm
they
not
forget
talking
about
about to pay to fix the driveway. I'm talking about a fund that would provide money to the borough to be able to afford to place a lien on, you know, when you, if you have to go ahead and fix a property and then place a lien on the property, that means, in a sense, you're floating the loan in that interim. What I'm saying is to build a fund through the landlords and the people that have the cash in the beginning, get some money together and use that money to float some
Well,
of
no
those
UNO
properties.
should be approved at all if the driveway is in bad condition. I mean, that's simple too.
Excuse me?
No renter should get a renter's license if
I
the
agree.
driveway's bad, and that's something I
agree.
think we can handle start today.
That's why I say start with the landlords, because they're taking money out and it helps the tenant, it helps the town, and it helps everybody.
You know, people that rent a house move in there, and they're not gonna move in the house and place a driveway right away.
They shouldn't have to,
Right.
it should be the
It
owner.
should be on the landlord.
It should be the owner, that's why I said, but,
That's
you know,
a no-brainer.
that's the cash cow, I would start there, you know what I mean, rather than attack the residents, you know?
But to just throw out another, people weren't at the committee meeting, I don't think it's fair for all of Fallcroft, that most of us that don't have a driveway, to pay for those that do. To have the borough replace all the driveways is just, to
No,
me,
I don't-
that's just insane.
I don't think the borough should in any way pay for anybody's driveway. I'm simply talking about enabling the borough to carry the loan, so to speak, in a case where you have to fix a driveway and then place a lien on a property. Hopefully, in most cases, the homeowner will pay sooner than that.
How much are the fines for not filling the potholes?
I'm sorry?
How much are the fines for not filling the potholes?
Joe, what's the
Is it $20?
fine?
First, it starts out with a $25 fine, and that's what's like on our fine envelope. It would be other, it is a pothole, it would just be under other, it's at the bottom of the envelope. When that isn't paid, then it goes to citation. Then when it goes to citation, you know, you could go up in numbers. You can go up to, I guess it's like, what, $1,000 just about?
Well, if they pay
But
it,
but
then
it
it
never
gets off your
really
back.
reaches that, because when it goes into citation, there's like, say, a $300 fine put on the citation. That citation may sit there in the courts for 6 months, 8 months, maybe a year.
That's the problem.
And then you go in front of the judge, and then somebody said, well, I fixed it. Well, they fixed the pothole. They didn't really get a whole new repaving, which some of these driveways need a complete new repaving. They need to be milled, they need to be dug out, and they need a whole new surface put on top. Some people are getting it done with just a surface put on top, potholes get repaired, and it's about this much thicker than a neighbor's driveway. Then it rains, pothole sits there in the winter, freeze thaw. In about 6 months, driveway's going again.
Yeah, I understand that, but
You see, that's.
They just pay the fine and
It depends
it's
on the type
over.
of job you're getting too.
it's once a year, right?
Yeah.
That's my problem. They pay the fine and it's over for another
Right.
year, and then
Right.
the fine.
But Joe, if they pay the fine and it's not taken care of, we fine them
Fine
again,
again.
correct?
If you keep ticking them until they, but if they keep paying $25,
That's
they
a
may
lot
say, well, that's
cheaper
cheaper
to
than
fix
fixing it the black way.
Why don't they get the citation after the first fine?
They get a citation, but then it might not go into court for like sometimes several months, sometimes 6 months.
Yeah, he's still going to court for like 2010, 2011, so.
Well, we can.
But,
is it-
but
what
the
is
thing
it-
was,
what's
I
the
never
rule-
gave a
what's the
$25
rule
fine
about
for a
citing them?
driveway.
And then if they're going to
Everybody-
court, can you cite them?
You
No.
just did a citation?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
the ordinance
Okay.
says you can cite them and then you can go ahead and do the repair, it doesn't say about having to take.
Citation.
You can cite
Yeah,
them
well,
every day, too.
Yeah. the
And you can
citations-
cite them every 48
The
hours,
citations back it up.
one
the letters
after
I wrote.
another.
In other words, I did like 200 letters for the driveways, approximately, over a period of April and May. Gave them warning notices, fix the driveway, or,
Well,
you
here
know.
would be my question. In the last 2 meetings, we've
I don't
heard
know
about
why
this.
they need
Yeah,
a
like your
warning
citation.
letter.
Hey, guys, let me ask you this a question. We've heard about this Bennington, the same exact place, 2 meetings in a row. Why don't we start and focus there and go to that one, find them, cite them, 48 hours later cite them again, because we've heard 6, 7 residents say this is the worst one we know of.
My kids
Let's
fell
just
off the
focus
bike
on that
many
one.
Get
times.
the problem spots first.
And yeah, let's hammer.
Thank
There's
you.
no reason not to.
Thank you.
That's basically what the law is telling you to do, you know what I mean?
Let's do it.
If they don't pay the citation, then you go in, you fix the driveway, and you send them a fat bill. I guarantee you, once the word gets around that a couple people have got bills they gotta pay that are huge, then some people are gonna start thinking about fixing their
I
potholes.
mean, we gotta push
Especially
this
when you're
big,
giving them the
right?
blacktop
Let's
to do
focus
it.
on this much of the problem and see if we can at least make a difference on that one corner of Bennington. I think we can do that.
Why don't we do
That's
this?
my point.
Why can't we take some of the citation money, okay? Well, can we put it in a separate account and let that money build up so that we can maybe use that money to possibly buy some patch or even pave one?
Because it's private property.
I
and
understand
what's
that,
gonna
but
ha-
we-
But what's gonna happen
we
is,
had this
the
problem
then what's gonna happen is the
anytime.
person that owns that home is gonna say, well, now that you just touched my
I
private
know.
property, you're
Now
paying
you gotta
my
do
taxes,
everybody's.
and you have
That's
to do
why I say
everybody's.
use the money
Not do that.
to float the lien when you have a
Because
separate
if you're gonna
property.
fix my
Use the money.
backyard, I'm gonna tell you to pay my taxes on that property.
We had a problem, me and Tom looked at with the sewer in the alleyway. Because the sewer was on the actual parking lot of the actual house. We couldn't do anything about it.
Yes, but what I'm saying is, I mean, it's nice that you wanna do a fund and stuff like that, but I would like to know how many tickets does Mr. Papaleo give out per month for the potholes? That would be a nice thing to
Well,
know.
The citations are gonna back up the letters I gave out. If no one fixes the potholes,
The
they're working
question
on, there's a
was-
lot of people out there now getting driveways.
Excuse me,
Whoever
would
doesn't get-
He wrote 51 code tickets, but I didn't break it down.
Thank you, that's what I
Oh,
was.
okay. I thought you, but I'm writing the citations for the, see, it's not going to tickets. It's going to the citation. Anybody doesn't comply with repairing their driveway, if the letters I send out, it's going right to citation. I'm not sending tickets. And then those citations could stay out there for a while before these people even be caught, you know,
Well, then why don't
brought
we
to.
just-
You write another
The ordinance
citation
gives
on
you the
top.
right
What
to
do you
fix
do
the
with
driveway in 30 days.
Councilman
if they don't
McWiggin
comply.
just
But see,
said.
we don't, there's.
Every
Joe,
48 hours.
Okay, okay. Joe, we'll talk about this after
Okay,
the meeting,
all right.
okay?
Every 48
I'm
hours
gonna remind you.
works, because I know if I got one ticket, I'd be there 5 minutes later fixing something.
But there are some people that
That
can't.
don't.
No, I know that.
There are some
I-
people that are either too old to do it, can't afford it, it's not cheap,
Can we just
so.
move on in our meeting? Thank you. Cliff, do you have anything to report from Executive Director?
I guess her driveway's nice.
Chief, do you have anything to report?
Well, we've been quite busy. The narcotics arrests have increased. We've had a couple this week. We've also had
That's not good.
no, well, for who we got, it's good, because
Okay.
we've been looking for them, and so is
Oh,
our
good.
tonight, we have in custody now, somebody we've been looking for a long time. He's been driving people crazy up on the 1800 block of Shellcross. I'm sure Christine is fully aware of that. It's kind of typical for the residents. The residents will call us complaining because they know somebody does something, but it's just simply not enough to prove it. There's not enough to take them to
So you have
court.
to catch 'em.
Well, yeah, you have to catch them. They know it, but you gotta be able to tell the judge why you know it, and it's just not there. And Detective Bear had gone over to this guy's house, who was, he thought he was burglarized because his items missing in his house. He thought he knew he did it. But being that he was a local kid, not a kid, he's an adult, he's over 18, he thought maybe take fingerprints, it would just solve it. But that's kind of not the case. I mean, it's not TV, but it's a local guy that's been in the area, so all it's gonna show is he's local, not that he necessarily broke into your house. So he was in the process of maybe getting some cameras, and when he was doing that, Billy told him, why don't you get a camera system set up? He did, and tonight our burglary suspect is on film burglarizing his house. So, the entire thing is on film. But he's been driving that street crazy
For a
for
kid and camera.
maybe 10 years.
Wow.
With, you know,
Finally, wow.
terrorizing people like you wouldn't believe, but he's in custody now. And the reason I brought it up is because, you know, we're sensitive to the boroughs, a lot of the boroughs, to the residents, because you know things, and I live here too, and I see certain things, but you just can't bring it to court because the judge doesn't want to hear it. There's just no proof. I know who's dealing.
Right,
I see some of these bananas dealing right on my nose.
right.
But to be able to take them to court and get a conviction, it's just need a lot more. But this street has been suffering a long time. It's a little dead end up there. They've been suffering a long time, so this guy's already on probation, he's gonna go away.
Oh, good.
So that's good news for those people up there, they've been suffering a lot.
What you said, can you call your mom?
Said I did call up.
Oh, okay. Alrighty, moving on to old business. Lauren?
Okay, well, we already had a hearing before the meeting on the proposed abandoned car ordinance, so I'd like to make a motion to adopt the ordinance.
Second.
May I have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Drowsky?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Pettit?
Yes.
Ms. Foley?
Yes.
Mr. McGuigan?
Yes.
Motion carries. I'd like to make a motion, I'd like someone, let me rephrase that again. We had talked about the Global Connect. I had asked Mr. Wilson to go out there, and see if there was any other companies. And there are, but they're a lot more expensive. So I would like to ask council for permission to authorize the solicitor and myself to sit down with Global Connect to work out a contract in order to have the system put into,
Just that automated system too.
yeah. Yeah, it's the automated system to let the residents know different things, emergencies, if there's a bad storm or there's somebody breaking into cars, somebody breaking into houses, to let the residents know. So we're all on the same page, because a lot of people don't have the internet, a lot of people don't watch the television station where we put things. So we figured if we got this Global Connect, which some other boroughs are using, it would give us more connection to the residents.
So will they be able to contact your cell phone if you don't have a landline?
Yes. Yes. You'll be able to set up texting, if you have a landline and your cell phone. For each one, you'll be given a thing to go on and sign up for it.
And how much does that cost a month?
It doesn't cost the taxpayers anything. The contract that we're looking at is like $1,400. But we want to try.
How does it not cost the taxpayers?
Well, it does cost the taxpayers, so yeah, it's gonna cost $1,400.
A year for our month.
A year.
Are we going in with any other boroughs?
That's one of the other things that I'd like the solicitor and I to sit down with them about, because the sales rep did mention that we could piggyback on another borough, which would give us half the cost, which would be $700.
Right.
So.
In Delaware County, there's only one borough right now that has it.
So you need to meet with,
Springfield.
Yes.
That's the only one.
Southeast Delaware uses it also.
Well, school, I'm talking about
It's-
boroughs.
Oh, boroughs, I'm sorry.
Morton, one of the ones that we're discussing, we have this also.
Yeah, Morton's looking into it, Maiden is also looking into it, so.
And Susan, the chief will be the one to designate all the phone calls of who gets called and when, the reason for calling?
If they're
Sorry about
police
that.
related, police related, Brogo would give the information to Linda, Linda would put it into the system.
Okay.
If they're police related. If they're borough related, Linda would put the borough information into the system.
So it's emergency.
And then our emergency director, Mr. White, he would have access to also put stuff into the system, to notify residents if there was an emergency.
I think the system works that it'll automatically, if there's an emergency, they say on a certain block, it'll automatically pick up that street and dial every number. That's why I can say if somebody's breaking in, it'll go boom, 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 so that everybody's aware.
All right, now let's say one person doesn't want their phone number given out.
Yeah, we,
Then you respect that.
Yeah, they get
yeah,
blocked.
we will call them people, and if they want their
A
own
motion
private.
to authorize myself and the solicitor to move forward in getting, a contract. Second. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Drowsky?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Pettit?
Yes.
Ms. Foley?
Yes.
Mr. McGuigan?
No.
Motion carries. Steve, do you have anything?
I would just like a motion for the charity event on the field behind the firehouse for June 29th. That we talked about last week.
What's that charity event? Excuse me?
I don't have the paper with me. Paul from Chaser is doing it. first elected. Shoot 29.
And I'm to understand that you're getting, the people that are participating are signing waivers at the borough
Yes,
and all
so that the borough and the bar is not responsible for any injuries.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Drowsky?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Benny?
Yes.
Ms. Foley?
Yes.
Mr. McQuiggan?
Yes.
Motion carries. Any other old business? Okay, moving on to new business.
I have new business. I would like a motion to approve the handicap renewals and a new one for Michael Bowles for handicap parking at 803 Brady Road. So I guess I gotta do it separate, so. A motion to do the renewals.
Do I have a motion for the renewals? Larry, do I have a second?
No, we can't.
Do I have a roll call, please? Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Benny?
You just
Ms. Foley?
motion.
Mr. McQuiggan?
Yes.
Motion carries.
I have a question about that. I talked with him before. Don't you have to have a license for working with spots?
I got them working.
Not a placard, a license.
I'm not sure how the, so anybody with a handicap license, a handicap placard can park in?
Anybody that has, yes, anybody that's handicapped that is properly marked can park in one of these spots, even though a resident is going to their doctor and they're paying for these. That's a handicap parking space for anybody, not just that resident. Anybody that's handicapped. So it's not fair, but that's how.
He may not have a licensed handicap, all he has to have is go in one of them.
Yes.
So let's just say 5 houses down, there's a handicap spot, and I have a handicap car, I can park on the spot.
So then why do they make
That's
you
It's not a
own
local
it?
rule, guys, that's.
No,
That's
no,
the law of the
I'm
state.
just, I'm just clarifying something, so you don't have to.
Yeah, we understand
There's nothing we can do.
Okay,
about
yes,
it.
yes. They made Dave go and get police.
We understand the issue.
Excuse me, I have a question.
Okay.
Wasn't it made a law that we all had to have a license plate in order to own a
Yes.
spot?
Yes, it was, I thought it was.
Yes.
Yes, it was a year or two
Linda?
ago.
Okay.